Hello, Vanguard community. Today is Wednesday, August the 5th, 2020. I'm Jennifer Methvin, Chancellor at Arkansas State University Beebe, and this is Doing Things Differently and Learning Something New. Those of you who follow the program know that these are just conversations that I have with faculty, staff, and students about how the current public health crisis, the coronavirus, has impacted what we do at the institution and what we might be learning from that might make us a little better. Have a great guest with us today who certainly had a different summer than the last couple of summers. This is Stephanie Quick. She's the Assistant Director of our Upward Bound program. Stephanie, introduce yourself to everybody.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Methvin. I am Stephanie Quick. I am the Assistant Director of Upward Bound for both the Beebe and Heber Springs campuses. And so a little bit about me, I've been with the program for 7 years now in different capacities. But prior to that, I was an ASU-Beebe student, ASU-Beebe alumni, and I'm also Upward Bound alumni as well.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty safe to say as we jump into this first question here, that not everybody who might be listening to the program even understands about Upward Bound. Mm-hmm. So as we launch ourselves into our 5 questions in about 15 minutes, I'm going to ask that first question a little differently. Describe what the Upward Bound program is and then talk about how you had to do things just a bit differently this summer.
Yes, ma'am. So the Upward Bound program helps, we work with local area target schools to recruit and admit low-income, first-generation, academically at-risk students. So the students that don't have support at home, that don't know who to turn to or who to talk to about college and about what they need and how to be successful in college. So those are the types of students that we work with. And then once they're in our program, we help give them those skills that they would need to be successful, not just for getting into college, but for getting through college. And so this means that we have Saturday academies, we take them on cultural trips, we take them to college visits. So some of them, like not all of our students, end up here in the fall after they graduate. Some of them go off to other places, but the greater majority of them will end up here. So a few things that we've had to do differently this summer is usually we have about 90 students living in the residence halls and eating in the cafeteria and using all of these spaces around campus, and that's not possible. So we had to make that decision to go virtual this summer for our rising 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. They all use Google Classroom and they're interacting in that form. And they're actually in like the traditional online format. So they are having to learn some time management skills and what it means to, some of them are working and trying to do this as well. So they're having to learn that. And then another big thing that we've taken on this summer is groceries for our students because, again, they're low-income families. So they have a student at home that maybe they weren't planning on because they, Upward Bound feeds that student during the summer. So we have used the ASU-Beebe vans and driven them over to Edwards and loaded them up with some non-perishable groceries and brought them over here and unloaded them. And those students come in on Sundays and pick up their groceries. And if they can't, we take them and deliver them to them. So that's a couple of the more major differences that we've had this summer.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I really missed having them on campus this summer.
Me too.
That and Vanguard Discovery Camp students, having some of those K-12 age students on campus in various ways during the summer keeps us young and keeps us popping. So just a little follow-up on when those high school students are in the program or seniors, we do something called Bridge. So you might talk a little bit about how we pull Bridge off this summer. Not we, y'all pull Bridge off this summer, but a little differently, but they got to have their experience.
Yes. So our Bridge students, those are the students, right, that have just graduated high school. And this year, those students, they graduated early. They ended school in March. some of them. And so we brought them on campus in July, and they lived in the residence hall so that they could have good access to internet and computers, and we could be here to assist them through their classes. So they lived in the residence halls, they ate in the cafeteria. That's how they got their meals. And they could come over here to State Hall to our computer lab for Trio, and have good access to being able to be successful in their classes.
Yeah. So we did have some students around, and that was
Yes.
good. So is it fair to say that one of the challenges both for us and for these families was the computers and the internet access for the
Yes,
summer?
ma'am. Absolutely. 100%.
I know we had some school districts who kindly let some students recheck out their Chromebooks, and some
We did.
partners who helped us out. But in
Mhm.
some places where we just don't have good signals and things like this has been tough
Yes.
to keep students connected. Yeah.
Mhm.
So y'all have done a lot of hard work. I really appreciate it. Well, so Stephanie, do you think we've learned anything through this process that might become a permanent part of Upward Bound, or change the way we do anything in Upward Bound, or make us somehow a bit better tomorrow than we are today?
So one thing I learned pretty soon after we went remote for a little while was being in our offices. We always think, like, oh, we have plenty of technology. Like, all of this is like perfectly fine. But then, like we've just discussed, going home, like, some of us don't have computers or laptops. Some of us, don't have good access to the internet. And I think that helps us remember to show empathy in situations that maybe before we would have been a little harsher, and held our expectations a little higher. So that's one thing I think that we've learned, along with student expectations and student engagement. So when they don't have their internet not working, or they don't have good access to be able to log on and join us and do stuff, how do we engage them and keep them going and keep them motivated? So.
Yeah. That's I think that is something that will across the board impact us all and make us a little more empathetic, and understand more intimately, maybe, that when we talk about an under-resourced student, we were sort of under-resourced while we were
Yes.
remotely working. So that gives us a little bit more insight there. That's good. So besides being employees of the institution and of the TRIO program, we're also people who had to remotely work and try to help take care of our families and our personal lives. So talk a little bit about what perhaps has been most challenging for you personally during this.
Okay. So I am an introverted person, 100%, but I also miss true interaction. You know, talking to my students through a computer screen, talking to other family members, possibly through a computer screen, looking at a webcam, like, it hurts my heart sometimes having to, conduct business in that way or talk to my family like that. And I would much rather be able to, like, go give them a hug or just run down the hall and deliver something to someone that needs it down the hall, instead of scanning it and sending it. And it's just not personal to me.
It's not personal. Yeah, that's been a pretty common thing in all this, I tell you. So, all right. Well, it's only fair, I always say. There are 5 questions. I ask 4 of them, and I allow you to ask one of them. So what's your question of me?
Okay. I've thought about this, and it's something that we've seen through our students both this summer and previous years as well. They Our students, because of their situation and the type of life that they live, are feeling pressured to work and not put school and their education first. So what would your advice be to those students who feel pressured to work while also weighing their options for college?
Yeah, that's such a such a problem that we talk about a great deal in higher education, because we want to get folks through as quickly as we can so we can get them to their careers and change their economic position as quickly as we can. But we also know that we have so many students that the reality is that they are help putting food on the table, not just for themselves, but for their family, um, and situations like that. Well, my advice to those students would be, let's sit down and really weigh this through. Let's even do a little math on what it would mean if you took 3 or 4 years to do this 2-year degree and worked full time. And I find often I'm trying to talk a student out of working full time, full time. Or even, let's weigh the difference in this. As badly as I hate student debt, we are a very affordable institution. So I sometimes have conversations with students about what would it mean if your resources that you have, being if they're a college student now, student support services student, as they've moved on from Upward Bound, and perhaps they're Pell eligible, perhaps they have some scholarshiping. What if it looked like if we had a small amount of borrowed money that we put with that? You need to be very mindful of what you're borrowing. You need to be very mindful of what you're spending. But what if that let you work 20 hours less a week and we got you finished here? Do some thinking about that. The other thing I advise a lot is, let's think about where those funds are going. Certainly, if you're helping feed some folks, take care of the basic needs of some family members, you feel and have that obligation, and we respect that. But let's think about what you might be taking on that's extra. Have you taken on, because you're entering adult life, a vehicle, a car payment, an insurance payment? And is that the wisest decision right now? Because I'll send you to some of those same people who weren't mindful with their student debt, and they'll tell you, I wish I had never bought that truck. It distracted me from my studies, and then I had to figure out how to make the insurance payment every 2 months, and I had to. Let's really, really deeply think about what is important and necessary, and what needs to be a priority, and what maybe are things that we want but that we can forego right now. But do understand that we understand your obligations and your responsibility, and it's not that we won't say to you, you're right. Being a 3/4 time student or being a half-time student is what we need to do. And we're going to be right here beside you to try to keep you motivated, because that's the other thing that happens. If you lengthen the time, you're going to get tired and feel like this is never over. So I guess my advice would be is to come in here, let the folks who are really good and understand this sit with you and talk through and make a conscious decision about how much you're going to work, how much you're going to go to school, how you're going to balance those things, and what's going to be your priorities. That would be my greatest advice. And sometimes some of the things we think that we really, really have to have might be more wants than needs.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, we know that you know this because you preach this to students every day. That the more quickly you can move through your educational program, the more you can reap the benefits of it. And by any measurement, the minimum return on investment of a student in their education is $5 to the dollar. And so the more quickly we can get you to that as a minimum return on investment, then the better off you will be in the long run. So that's a great question. And I know you all visit with students about that every day of the week.
Yes.
Well, we started all this in March. So it impacted your Saturday programs all through the spring. We've been through this all this summer, and now here we are, just a couple of weeks before the beginning of the fall semester, and all the things that will be different as we try to, within the same health crisis, bring some students back face to face, serve more students online, do more Zooms like this, all of these things that we're doing. So everybody feels stretched and a little challenged. So I like to counter challenge to ask, but there's got to be a silver lining. What's the silver lining in all of this that we're going through and learning and doing differently?
So there's a couple. One of them being that I think our students are finally starting to recognize and listen about the importance of good time management skills. Because a lot of them, right, I've said it before, like they're trying to work, they're trying to take classes this summer, and they're realizing how hard that truly is if they don't have good time management skills. And then the next thing is I think they're going to appreciate their in-person classes a little bit more when we're able to fully come back and do that. So that way they can interact with one another and get feedback the way that they're used to and different things like that. And then just personally, I think a silver lining, I come from a family that is essential workers. And so I think, or I hope that as a nation, as a state, as a community, that we can maybe view them a little differently and put a little more importance on those, and that our students can see that. And, like ASU-Beebe has multiple essential working programs to be a part of and to get your education through. So in the off chance that this ever happens again, we're all prepared.
Yeah. And valuing work for work.
Yes.
And knowing a bit more about what it takes to keep the wheels turning every day. And you're right, we've got a lot of those careers you can prepare for right here at the college. That's a good silver lining. I like that. Well, Stephanie, it's been a joy to visit with you. I want to thank you and everyone in Upward Bound again for this summer. I know it hasn't been an easy thing at all. It wasn't easy to plan. It wasn't easy to implement. It wasn't easy to figure out what we could and could not do. It wasn't easy. Nothing about it was easy, but students have been fed, students have been educated, students have had connections, and that's what Upward Bound is all about. And so more students are going to be prepared for success in higher education because of the program. So thank you for that work.
Thank you.
And thanks for everyone who continues to follow the series. Again, we're just trying to learn how we might be a little bit better on the other side of this crisis than we are now, and getting a little insight about what our faculty, staff, and students are going through. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to next time. Thank you.